All right, good morning, man. Christmas Eve, still a lot going on. I know people are going to be out shopping.
Yeah, I'm busy today, Rob. I got to go get the Kung Fu grip with the Commando. I got to
Yeah,
go to Walmart across the way the hell away to get the one scooter bike that they have
they've
left.
got to have the
Only
Walmart
one.
in Ocala, don't they?
No, I got to go to Inverness.
Over on Highway 27. I've been there.
Got about 29 miles south, so that's going to be a good dad today, and so Stella can have that electric scooter bike.
There you go. That's where the Hager brothers. They went to Auburn when I was there. We're from Inverness,
Hager, like
Florida.
Hager pants, Hager
No,
clothing.
I don't know. Maybe they.
I
may
know
have
Mr.
been.
Hager, by the way, and Mr. Hager Senior, who God, willing, or God passed, or whatever you want to say, for him and his pants.
Yeah,
he was a member at Castle Pines. I used to caddy for him and his son.
yeah. Well, I know. There's
Hager slacks.
Hager, yeah, I remember Hager and Sansabelt and all that stuff because they were from Inverness, man. Hey, a lot to cover today. Johnny Ballpark Franks is going to be joining us here in just a few minutes. Always love having him on. Rodney Orr will be on with us as well, and looking forward to hearing from these guys. There's a lot to cover today, and I was watching this morning the replay, the pregame of the Tennessee Ohio State game. And I hit the first three. I even covered on all three of the playoff games. In the Tennessee game, I was just completely missed it. I thought Tennessee would be ready to play. And I think Ohio State wanted that game way more than they did. 23 degrees. That's cold, but God, when you're outside moving around, it's not that bad. But Ohio State wanted the game more. I don't know. That's the first time Tennessee has ever played a Big Ten opponent, Johnny and Brendan, on the road in an SEC game. Hey, smash that subscribe button in the bottom right-hand corner, or take a picture of it with your cellular phone and join and be a subscriber. We're simulcasting live on X, Facebook, and YouTube on 7 channels. Simultaneously, Johnny Ballpark Franks, as they say down in Murray County, Tennessee, simultaneously at the same damn time. So we are. How you doing, man?
Did I miss something? Did Ohio State join the SEC? No, I'm saying. Wait, did you just misspeak there? I'm sorry. And by the way, I thought we were invited to a Christmas party, not a pants party.
Yeah.
Thank you very much,
Rob.
Here's the thing about Tennessee, and when you saw the pairings as far as the first round of the playoff games, when you saw where Tennessee had to go on the road instead of playing at home in Knoxville, Tennessee's a different team at home compared to being on the road. And so until Josh Heupel, look, remember Bear Bryant, who had the great 70s, 3 national championships in the 70s, starting in 67, he couldn't win a bowl game. 0-7-1 from 67 to 74 cost him a couple of more national titles during that span, and then things changed starting in 75. Josh Heupel, whatever he's doing, he needs to change what he's doing as far as when he takes his team on a business trip, because what he's been doing, he cannot win big games on the road. Until he does, he'll be a above average coach. He'll never be a great coach until he masters that trait.
Yeah, they came out in the pregame, and we talked about this, like the Alabama-UCLA game in 1976 in the Liberty Bowl. It was 9 degrees. I was there. Alabama players came out in cutoff T-shirts, not shirtless, cutoff T-shirts. I think UCLA was a 14-point favorite. Alabama ended up winning 36-6. It was a statement game. Johnny, Nico Iamaleava, give him a grade. His first year, he won 10 games. No Tennessee freshman quarterback has ever done that.
Well, and look, give him props for that. I still remember 2011. We remember A.J. McCarron as a great quarterback for Alabama for what he was able to do in 2011, 12, and 13. In fact, in 13, if it wasn't for the kick six, we could have been talking about Alabama playing for 3 consecutive national titles. If the BCS had ended a year earlier, and we had the 4-team playoff in 2013. Even with Alabama losing to Auburn, they still would have been in the playoff. I bring it up because what happened in 2011? Starting in that national championship game against LSU, remember, it was a low-scoring game the first time around when LSU beat Alabama in overtime in Tuscaloosa 9-6. So what happened? Nick Saban and that staff got AJ comfortable in the game, gave him high percentage plays where it allowed him to build confidence as the game progressed. All of a sudden, if you're down 21-0, and I don't care if you do have 12 games under your belt as a quarterback, you're still going to have a tough time, especially winning on the road. Give props to the fact that they were able to close the gap at halftime, 21-10. But the damage was done early, and the weather has nothing to do with it. That's
Correct.
not cold for football. No. When you've got uniform and pads and everything else on, that is comfortable. So stop about the weather. And another thing, give full credit to the Tennessee Vols fans. God. They made that almost a home game for them. And so that's all on the team, and it's especially right there on the lap of Josh Heupel. He has to do better as far as preparing his team for road contests.
You do. And Nico Iamaleava averages about 207 passing yards a game. If he can't complete those deep vertical passes, that's what Ellis Johnson talks about. He brought that up early in the season. That doesn't allow their offense to function. How much did Dylan Sampson only playing 3 snaps hurt the Vols?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you're talking about the premier offensive player in the SEC this year. So when you eliminate that part of the game, you're putting too much pressure on Nico to be able to produce. But then again, though, if you're Tennessee and this is not, it's not like you just arrived on the scene. Remember, 2 years ago, upsetting Alabama, Nick Saban, when Bama missed the field goal and Tennessee didn't. So I put this firmly on the lap of Josh Heupel. He should have somebody equally as talented as Nico with a couple of more years of experience underneath him. He should have somebody equally as talented as Dylan Sampson. When you're Tennessee, once again, you are one of the premier football programs in college football history. So with that said, you should know that you need a guy just as talented as the next guy, 1 and 2 deep at every position, if you're expecting to win national championships and even conference titles. And Josh Heupel's been there long enough. They've got the money. There's no excuse for that.
Well, in the world of the portal, with guys leaving at the drop of a hat, it's harder than it's ever been to develop depth in the quarterback room or anywhere.
You don't have to develop it; you can buy it, and Tennessee can buy that depth.
No,
We're not talking Southeast Missouri State. We're not talking Gardner-Webner. We're not talking Slippery Rock. We're talking about Tennessee with deep pockets. They want a winner. They've been paying players anyway before it was legal. So why not do it the right way now and buy those players?
Come on now. Grow up, have a martini, and buy some players.
Right.
Yeah. Well, I think that with Gaston Moore, the backup for Tennessee, Josh Heupel is really good. He played quarterback from coming out of Aberdeen, South Dakota, was a runner-up for the Heisman, but won a national championship at Oklahoma.
Don't remind me of that because I was there and it was ugly. And Snoop Menace didn't pass his exam, so he wasn't eligible to play. And so, I was there. It was miserable.
What was it? 12-6 or 12-4?
13-2, baby. 13-2.
Yeah, it was like a bad.
It was an offensive juggernaut. Let me just tell you of a game there.
Well, you think about Oklahoma and that offense they had in 2008. They were averaging in the 5 games coming into the matchup against Florida 59.6 points a game. Florida beat them, I believe, 24-14. It's a different world when you play a team that's got talent and can go blow for blow with you. Johnny, this college football season, we talked about it yesterday. Notre Dame, they're not in a conference. They got a first-round matchup against a team that they were so much better than. It wasn't even competitive.
Don't even get me started with that.
Yeah, to win 11 games at Indiana, that's a big deal. But the strength of schedule laughable. We know that.
Yeah, let's break down that schedule. By
Yeah.
the way, their non-conference they had 3 non-conference games. So when we talk about the SEC needs to schedule like the other conferences and add an extra conference game, let me just tell you what Indiana did. We thought after Cincinnati's the way they backdoored themselves into getting into the playoff in 2021 that the committee would be smarter than that, right? Wrong. Because you had Indiana. Who did you have representing the SEC on this committee? 2 guys from Missouri. 2 guys with ties from Missouri. Nothing screams SEC football like Missouri.
Missouri
so
football.
we look at Indiana. We get Indiana. They played their 3 non-conference games. Charlotte, Florida International, Western Illinois, and then they get into conference. They had 2 games. They're 7 of their 9. Guess who they beat this year? How they finish in the standings. I'm not making this up. 11th, 12th, 13th, 14th, 16th, 17th, and 18th. 78% of their conference wins, 7 of their 9 conference wins, came against the teams that finished 11th through 18th in the Big Ten this year. They had 2 games. 2 games. Michigan, who was very down this year, and then they had Ohio State. And what happened? They got embarrassed against Ohio State. So with that said, Indiana had no business being in the playoff. And you've got these metrics you're supposed to use. Nobody on that committee seems to understand what they mean. And what they basically mean is this. Since you don't have a schedule that you can compare, so you have strength of record, strength of schedule. The bottom line is Indiana would have had 4 or 5 losses if they had had Alabama's schedule or South Carolina's schedule or Ole Miss's schedule. Indiana had no business being in the playoff in the first place.
Well, another thing to add fuel to that fire is it's all about the TV sets, and that's all they were caring about. And they tried to be inclusive. You go back 50 years ago in the 70s when college football was much more of a regional game. Now it's a national game. And with the 12 team, well, they're trying to make it, but I'm saying
they're trying to make it. But if they wanted it to be about the TV sets, guess where 8 of the top 10 most viewed teams, where did they land this year as far as conferences? 8 of the 10, including Kentucky. Kentucky is one of the most watched teams in all of college football. And did they have a good season this year? No. But 8 of the 10 from the SEC. How did wait, and here's the other thing. If the committee tells you the SEC is the strongest, and they tell you this by looking at how many teams are ranked in the top 19 in the country from the SEC, then how did the SEC only get 3, whereas the Big Ten, got their 4?
Well, where was Greg Sankey being an advocate for the SEC? He's the most powerful man in college football. A lot of people.
Where was Kalen DeBoer?
Yeah, where were
if Nick Saban had been, out there still as head coach? Look at what he was saying on Sunday. A little too late. But he should not have been having to say this. Greg Sankey should have been saying this. Kalen DeBoer should have been saying this. Greg Burns should have been saying this all week long. Instead, everybody thought Alabama was safe until they were not after the ACC championship game.
Well, what we also have is they're trying to make it a national game when it's not quite there, when the dominance is in the Southeastern Conference. And that is the problem. They try to make it about Boise State.
That'd be good. They're going to win the whole thing. I got Boise State to win it.
I am pulling for Arizona State. I have to admit,
I know you about Johnny. You're right, because I watched Sun Devil football this year.
Right.
I told Rob, and I told everybody this year. I said, "Do not sleep on the Sun Devils.
Watch out for their running back.
Watch out for their running back.
Scatterboo.
And their defense is pretty fierce. They got some big guys, but that's the kind of team." This is why all of a sudden we're talking about Boise State and ASU at the end of the year. And we're like, how did we get here?
How did they get to host?
How are they
or how did they get a bye? How did they get a bye to say?
Like it's not even, to me, it's not, Johnny, it's not even a conversation. And I think it's such a tired conversation when somebody says, well, SEC, but look at what they're doing out in Colorado, or look at what they're doing out there. Hey, man, I'm from Colorado. I grew up there. That's not the same thing. Football and college football, it will never, ever be the same thing as it is in the South. So therefore, you can get away with a lot more out there because you're not in the fishbowl that you are in Florida, Texas, Tennessee, and these other SEC schools. It is not that easy. And people don't talk about the pressure of being an SEC school. Every week they're getting up for you. Every
I got a
week,
proposition.
every team.
As far as the college football world wanting to extend and say the SEC needs to add a conference game to be on the same level as the Big Ten and the ACC as far as the number of conference games, I say that the Big Ten, ACC, all the other conferences, they come down to where the SEC is, play 8, and have a 3-person committee, schedule a non-conference game where they play matchmaker. You don't have a choice. You have to play, if you're Indiana or whoever you are, you have to play Alabama in that extra game. So I don't want to see the SEC. Look, the SEC is hurting themselves already. They don't need an extra game. When you look at who recruits the best, year in and year out, it's always the SEC that dominates that. It's the SEC that dominates the players in the NFL. You don't need an extra game if you're the SEC as far as conference game. You need the Big Ten, ACC to schedule one fewer and stop scheduling FCS and make them play and schedule an ACC or an SEC or Big 12 or whatever the case may be.
Well, can it be how like the popular vote? And then like the presidential election, can't the conferences have weighted, can't the SEC have a weight that's different than, the ACC because of this, you know what I mean? It's like you need an extra bonus points for coming out of the SEC as far as strength of schedule and the power conference and all that stuff. I feel like that's sort of where I'm at with it. It's hard to look at one team and say, well, Alabama and Kentucky, and look at all, break that down. The SEC, I think that's real hard.
Well, and look at it's contagious, Rob. It's contagious. Look at men's basketball. Dominate. You might as well have the SEC standings right now in the top 7 in the country when you've got Tennessee, Auburn, and Alabama all in the top 5. Throw in Florida, throw in Kentucky. I mean, it's littered. 10 of the 16 teams are ranked in the top 23 in the country. 10 of the men's basketball teams of the 16 in the SEC, top 23. Remember, 340, give or take a few Division I basketball teams, and you've got 10 of the SEC in the top 23 in the nation right now.
Hey, let's go a step further. Let's look at baseball that comes up right on the heels of basketball. I mean, God, baseball is so fun to watch in the SEC. I mean, I love baseball season now.
Don't forget softball, and then you add Oklahoma too to the mix.
Yeah, softball, women's softball,
gymnastics,
Florida's gymnastics. I mean, it's awesome.
Brandon just did it. When people say women's softball, we're not going to have the beer gut league for the guys in coaches shorts and tube socks wearing bike coaches. Could you imagine men's softball in the SEC?
I would play.
Like all the on the team. Guys. It would be fun, but you've got, look, the gymnastics. They're scalping tickets at SEC venues, $150. I kid you not.
That's been a while for Florida. I mean, with all the athletes they've been pumping out.
Yeah, it has been. So getting back to this playoff thing, Alabama fans, and Rodney Orr is going to be on in a few minutes from Tider Insider. I hope Yancey can join us today, but it is Christmas Eve, and those of you watching, thank you, and Brendan.
And the hell with you,
Johnny.
Hell with you, Rob, for making us work on Christmas Eve.
This isn't work.
Well,
this is not work.
I gotta go get the Kung Fu grip thing at the store, and Walmart's messaging me saying, "We come pick up your item for your child." So.
Yeah, we've got to get back out there.
Hey, what was your last toy, by the way? I was thinking about this when I did my final show last night. Mine was the second, I wore out the first version, so I had the Evel Knievel doll and, the motorcycle. And I still have it. Yeah,
that's
the motorcycle. I still have it. It's in pristine condition.
Didn't it have the pull and the motorcycle?
Oh, no, you had to wrap it, and then it would do its nice little tricks.
Yeah. Well, I remember Friday nights as a kid, Evel Knievel one time. going to go over the Grand Canyon in that rocket.
Oh,
Remember
God.
that? I mean, it was Friday nights as a kid where Billy Graham revivals on TV and Evel Knievel doing something crazy.
No, it was
Friday-
Twin
and Saturday
Falls.
morning-
Twin Falls. They wouldn't let him
Yeah.
do the Grand Canyon,
They
so he
wouldn't
had
do
to
it. Yeah,
buy
they
his
just had to-
canyon there.
Yeah. And I remember
Well, he
Friday
broke
nights
a
being
lot of
about
bones.
Knight Rider. So just so you know, Rob, don't it was don't hassle the Hoff.
All
on
right,
Friday
so
nights, okay?
as far as
Oh, I
as
love
far as
Hasselhoff.
corrective police,
Oh, yeah.
first weekend of September, it was on a Saturday, and it was and look, he was the master show person because it was closed circuit TV, so you had to pay to. And now a week later, it was going to be on Wide World of Sports. But if
Yeah.
you wanted to see it then and there, so you show up and you pay. I don't know how much it was, probably $12.50 or something, which was a big price for. Because you could go to concerts for like $7.50 back then, but it was a closed circuit TV. Every city had it, and yeah, what a debacle! He thought he was going to die. Evil thought he was
Well,
going to die, and especially when he started
Yeah.
going down. If it wasn't for some rocks that kept him out of the water, he would have died that day.
He has got more pins than his. Well, he's dead now, but he had a lot of pins. And I bet he couldn't go through a metal detector.
Still, I thought.
Good Lord. I saw Andre the Giant trying to get through the metal detector, those doors, those narrow doors at LaGuardia Airport one time, and he got stuck, and he was going, it looked like King Kong, and they wouldn't let him through, and it caused me to miss a flight. I mean, I nothing I could do about it. I mean, he was bigger than a building, but I digress.
How many flights have you missed, Rob?
Look, this
okay.
2. And I tried. I
Is this a
sprinted. I
running
did
joke,
the
by
old
the way?
OJ
I'm not.
thing.
Is that
It is
insider
now.
information there?
But I had to spend the night and pay. But I got my money back. But it was crazy. But look, college football, the SEC guys, it is the best. I wanted a 9th game, but now that I've seen this first year with 12, no way, because we eat each other up, and we're going to end up penalizing the SEC. The Ohio State, the 4th best team in the Big Ten. How in the hell, other than bias on the committee, do they end up hosting a playoff game? Tennessee, the 3rd best team in the SEC, has to go on the road. Now, look, they had 30 to 40,000 fans up there. It wasn't like they didn't have any support, but it would have been cool to see it at Neyland. Regardless, they got killed. Guys, this committee, 2 guys on there from Missouri. No, you need them from the deep
Oh, wait, don't forget about
South.
the guy from Idaho.
You need him.
I mean, I'm sure he knows all about big
Idaho.
SEC games. Look the way Notre Dame schedules
That's all
too.
big-time football.
And yes, I understand Notre Dame
Yeah.
is not in a conference, but where do they have to go and say play 3 out of 4 games of top competition in the SEC? They can schedule and they get to manipulate their schedule the way they want, so they can put tough game, easy, medium, hard, and then easy, and they can do what they want with their schedule and make it work. See, that's unfair. So if I'm the committee, I tell Notre Dame, maybe we schedule games for Notre Dame. Look, I don't know if you're aware of this, but SEC teams scheduled their own conference games until the mid-'80s. So when you look back at the 40s, the 50s, the 60s, the 70s, early 80s, the SEC teams, Alabama, Georgia, whatever the case may be, they actually scheduled their own games. That's the reason why Alabama, under Bear Bryant, they never went to Gainesville. They would always have Florida come to Tuscaloosa, but Bear Bryant wasn't going to Gainesville then.
Remember, Georgia Tech made Auburn 14 straight years go to Atlanta. They wouldn't go down to Auburn. Okay, another one that's kind of funny. Back in the 60s and 70s or 50s, 60s, 70s, you would have some SEC teams play 8 football conference games. Other ones would
that was
play
smart.
6.
No, what would happen? So in years that a team would play 7, Bear would play 1 extra. So if you ended up tied with the same record, however, since Alabama would play 1 extra, they would have a half-game lead technically over the team that finished with the same number of losses. So they would be technically SEC champs over that team with the same number of losses.
Yeah, they did that, and then it changed. And you look at the non-conference schedules that people used to play. When you played only 6 SEC games, it was not unlikely to play Florida State as a non-conference game. Auburn and LSU would do that.
Bama
Okay?
would
That's, I mean,
schedule
which I think
Nebraska and
is.
Southern Cal in the same year when they were both powers. I mean, that's the kind of schedule Bear
I
Bryant
remember
would do.
Howard Schnellenberger's first year at Miami, 1979. They played Alabama in Tuscaloosa for homecoming. Saturday afternoon, late. Alabama won the game 31-0. They went on to beat Arkansas 24-9 for the
Alabama
national
did, yes.
championship in the Sugar Bowl that year. Yeah. And Major Ogilvy was in his 11th year as a running back at Alabama. Can you imagine Major Ogilvy in today's world? He'd be here 20 years.
He only
And
played 4 years, but you know
I
his
know,
weight.
but
Guess what
he
his
was
weight
really
was?
a good player.
This is what really blows my mind because he is still and will probably be the only person to ever score a touchdown in 4 consecutive New Year's Day games. And when I say about New Year's Day games, now it includes like the 2 days before and 2 days after. But, you know, the big 4 or 6, he's the only one to score a touchdown in 4 straight years. But his weight, it was right. It was right 180, 178. Yeah, it was he wasn't. But you look at him, and he on the field he looked powerful, and he just ran with a lot of strength. It's amazing when you look at some of those.
You know
weights.
where he's from, don't you?
Pardon me.
You know where he's from, don't you?
Well, Alabama. Yeah,
Mountain Brook.
Absolutely.
He's a Spartan.
And that's why our youngest Scottish Terrier is named Major. So we have one named after a running back. It's an inside joke. I don't think my wife gets it. We have the female is named after Terry Henley because her name is Henley. And I'm kidding because I really have a lot of respect for Terry Henley, the football player. But we named the youngest after Major Ogilvy. So true story.
Yeah. Hey, look, my friend Boyd had a dog named Major, and his father's name. Well, there was BJ Bama Jr. and then there was Major. Came after him. So a lot of people named these.
By the way,
dogs.
look at Evel Knievel's like awesome logo to jump the Snake River.
Oh,
see, I'm mad. I don't know if you know. All right, so I was 10 years old. I'm gonna take you back.
That tattoo right there.
I'm gonna take you back to the 10-year-old version of Johnny Franks. So I'm 10, and I didn't have the money to send a telegram, so I sent a mailgram, which was still more important than just your normal letter. So I had drawings of what I thought Evel Knievel should be wearing as far as the new color schemes for, his protection and all that. So I sent it to him. Guess how long I had to wait before I got a response? I'm still
2
waiting.
years.
34 years later. All right. How many years later? I'm still. Oh, yeah. I wish it was 34 years later. It was so long ago, I forgot. 50 years later, I'm still waiting on some kind of response. And I don't think I'm going to get it now, not unless it's coming from, I don't know where. But
his son doesn't seem to have picked up the torch as much and run with it.
I was big into Evel Knievel. I mean, I had
Who
all
wasn't? I mean, look at this. Look at him. He's he's such a handsome Hollywood badass, isn't he? He's like, God, he looks like, oh, I'm cool, man. And by the way, folks, ABC Worldwide of Sports. This was a big deal.
Wide world of sports.
Because ABC invested in all of these television trucks, all hundreds and hundreds of TV trucks that would go across the country and cover.
It was great. It was must-see TV every Saturday.
It would cover Race Across America, all these bicycle races. And this was the first of what we knew as to being remote broadcasting to understand, to go see what our country was doing. So, ABC was all over it. Look, he's in a rocket. Look at the rocket. He's going to go in this. Yeah, I remember this. And years later, ABC has to sell off all their TV trucks because they can't afford it anymore. That becomes the birthplace of third-party, TV truck remote broadcasting and all that stuff. A lot of this came from these kind of events. I mean, it was really hard to broadcast. Look at him. There he goes.
It's really sad. His son Robbie followed in his footsteps, and unfortunately, just like Bobby Bowden, he died way too young. Although Bobby Bowden enjoyed a nice life into his 90s, but Robbie Knievel died last year at the age of 60 of pancreatic cancer. Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that.
But he was, to me, because of Evel Knievel basically used kind of bikes that you almost could buy off the dealership. Whereas like Robbie Knievel and all of these modern daredevils, they're using kind of bikes that you can jump with. Evel Knievel, his bikes,
Stock.
You're fortunate to be able to do what he was able to do. I mean, didn't even have to tell you how fast you were going, and you had to just do it and feel it by the seat of your pants. That's why he wrecks so often.
Yeah. Well, the wreck was just you get to fall, you got to learn how to fall, right? I mean,
Well, he
Yeah.
his bones were made for breaking. That's for sure.
yeah.
Yeah. There was so much drama when he would be on there
Look at
doing
all the
this.
people.
And I'm looking at him walking back up afterwards, and everyone thought he was dead. And he'd just walk out of it
Oh, my
alive. It was the
God.
Snake River. Yeah. The
And that
Snake
shot
River,
right
man.
there back then,
That
that's
one-
a helicopter. No drones on that deal. I mean, they had to put a
Well, Brendan, looking at these TV, like the evolution of the TV trucks and all, like Jim McKay, the thrill of victory, the agony of defeat. Jim McKay was just the best, and the drama that we got to see, and the build up to these things, the anticipation. We had 4 or 5 TV channels. That was it.
Yeah,
So
ABC,
you were
CBS,
watching.
NBC, and your public broadcasting
station.
That's
Yeah.
it. And so,
whatever superstation you had coming in.
and think
somewhere.
about it. That's why we knew guys like Mark Fidrich with the Detroit Tigers, because there was no other reason. If Mark Fidrich came around today, we wouldn't even think about him.
Well,
We wouldn't have thought about Fernando Valenzuela.
No,
We were
right?
limited to the number of TV channels,
Right.
and so everything was bigger. I go back to remember the famous Seabiscuit race, where it was the match race.
Yep.
We had in the neighborhood of 120 million people in the U.S. at that time. 40 million tuned into the radio to listen to a match horse race. So that's talking about how sports have changed over the years, where you have 1/3 of the country listening on the radio to a 2-horse match race, to what we're talking about with Evel Knievel. And now today, that's why nonstop football on Saturdays, as far as college football, from 11 in the morning until wee hours of the morning the next day.
Well, to do shows like we're doing right now, 15, 20 years ago, like what we're doing right now. Like when I started streaming in 2008, it was literally, daisy chaining monitors and get everything. Now we're just like, oh, turn our laptop on, do it. You know what I mean? To do what we do now is unbelievable. To have shows.
I can't believe
and
Facebook is actually paying me, and I thought it was a joke earlier in the year. I gave up hundreds of dollars as a Facebook influencer because I kept getting a thing from Meta saying they need my tax information. And I thought, yeah, right. Like Nigeria wants to sell me something because a relative left me money. And it turned out it's true. So every month I get a direct deposit from Facebook.
Right.
Who knew somebody our age can become Facebook influencers and have 1 million+ impressions a year? Who knew?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, and that's the thing. It's, I have the same thing on my personal Facebook account, and people are like, oh, is it sports related? It's like, no, it's not. It's like I post and I get money, per post on what I get. So I get a couple $100 for this or that,
Right.
And it's nothing sports related. Some of it, it's just, it's people.
I have music, entertainment. I try to
Yeah.
inspire people. So I have music, entertainment, sports, a little bit of everything.
Yeah.
So,
Well, you know what's cool? I was at a Christmas party
I follow
Saturday
him too.
night. I was and you talk about music and how much that plays into sports. And I was at a Christmas party Saturday night at my friend's house, and I saw, growing up in Memphis, Stax music is a big deal. Have y'all heard?
Absolutely.
Y'all know? Okay. So yeah, so we grew up, and I saw Boo Mitchell there, and I said, I met Boo last year, and his father was a man named Willie Mitchell that started Stax, and was big with Stax. Now, he didn't start it. It was a lady that started it, and then he kind of made it world famous. And they live right there at Mendenhall and Shady Grove. And we were at the Music Notes, just like Elvis over there in East Memphis by the Dixon Gallery. His original house is still there. And Elvis grew up wanting to play for the Ole Miss Rebels. That was his dream. And just talking to Boo Mitchell, I said, he's so humble. These famous people, sports and entertainment and music. He won 2 or 3 Grammys last year. And I said, you won how many? And he said, yeah. And he's so humble. But these guys, it's amazing, the sports, what we grew up with. When there was a concert, you think about that. When we were kids, you could go to the East End Ballroom on Overton Square, the Crime, U2, the Police, Billy Joel started at Lafayette's Music Room. So Brendan talks about beginning streaming back in 2008. He said, Rob, today, what we do on this show, live streaming, it would take 15 people to do that back just a few years ago. And we do it with this guy. And it's amazing. It is absolutely amazing how this stuff has worked. But when he did that, he said his dad looked at him like he had horns coming out of his head. You're going to stream? What are you talking about? What was Buddy's reaction?
Buddy was always cool, like, because Buddy was on the radio. His career was not done. He just didn't need to worry about it. And he was on the radio, and it was just like, hey, no one's listening to terrestrial radio. There's this thing called Facebook Live. Let's try it. And we had to hack through, because Facebook Live was only on your phone for a long time. You couldn't use your desktop to stream. So we just figured out a portal and hacked through it, and it was also there's a software called OBS. It's a freeware software that can stream, and that was early on. A lot of people were downloading it because it enabled your computer to stream. This is all before Zoom and all that stuff. Even Skype was not that part. We used Skype and all that stuff, but it never worked right. Yeah. Now we're just sort of COVID years changed all that, so the technology pushed forward. So here we are. But now it's like, the internet is what cable TV was 25 years ago. It's like, it's just another place to get your content out. So,
but there's a problem, though. There's a problem with all this technology, and just like we thought it was, so much better when we had more options as far as viewing sporting events.
Yeah.
The problem is we've gotten lazy since 2020. Not just our industry, almost every industry you want to think of. And with that, when you become lazy, you lose the creative juices because you're not being exposed to people directly. I mean, it's just like the difference of the nicest person who goes to church on Wednesday and Sundays. You put her behind a wheel of a car and she'll be throwing the birds. She'll be telling you you're number one. She'll be trying to run you off the road. I think that we need to take a harder look in 2025. Everybody needs to take a harder look about how they're living their lives now, because I think the less time we spend outside interacting with people, the worse it's going to get to be able to communicate with individuals. So I love the technology, but I don't think it's supposed to take care of everything. I think that we still need to push ourselves to do more and grow outside of this technology as well. I mean, look at how many young people, and I whenever I get a chance to talk to high school kids or college grads, they're getting so used to communicating through text messages and whatever. And as well as I do, how a simple sentence can be taken 5 different ways, either to the degree that you want it to be, and then to the opposite extreme. And so when it comes time to doing what we're doing right now, as far as communicating and talking, we're used to that. We grew up being able to do that. There's so many people that don't have that ability. I mean, think about what we do every day or every time we do a show. I mean, I could stand up right now in front of an audience and talk 3 or 4 hours about sports, not even missing a beat. Most people can't do that for 2 minutes.
Right.
Or they're sitting at a table of 6 kids and they're texting each other about each other.
Right.
I mean,
I know.
But I was with my kids at the zoo last night, 2 of them and my grandson and son-in-law, and Audrey and I were, and not one of them had their cell phones
Anybody tried to
out.
feed you, by the way, Rob?
No, the animals go night-night. I mean, you couldn't go in there until about 5:30. The animals were all night-night except for Animals of the Night exhibit. But the grizzly bears, this zoo's incredible. But what I notice about my kids, and they're 24 to 35, they don't take cell phones out at dinner. They don't do it at the dinner because I'll be honest with you, which I always am. I've done it before, and they're like, Dad, put your phone up. That's rude as hell. And I'm like, thank you for saying that. But the communication part of it.
I have to tell you to turn your phone off.
I know. Show. Yeah, exactly. I'm
you just have a problem, Rob. I don't know.
But Brendan pointed this out about the communication and all and what people do. Well, go back to those United Airline commercials. Remember they did a few years ago when the manager is throwing out tickets to everybody. You're going to Omaha. You're going to San Francisco. You're going to New York. You're going to Chicago. You're going to Memphis. He goes, go see the people. Just quit calling them on the phone. You have to go see people. Life's all about relation. And in sports, what we do, we know these coaches. We get to know them. What's off the record stays that. But people
But whether we
love.
like it or not, what we're seeing now, trend, Johnny, which is, I hear what you're saying. The flip side of that to me is that I left TV broadcasting for the opportunity for the technology to take us to the next. But whether I liked it or not, I saw writing on the wall and said, we can do all this TV truck stuff in a computer now, right? We can do everything. And as soon as I saw that, it wasn't a choice at that point. It's like, this is where we're going to go, because the bean counters, they're going to say, this is where we're going to go. And we saw that early with remote broadcast being, cut in half. There's usually a home feed and away feed for a broadcast, for graphics and all that stuff. We then start seeing those trucks turn into one truck, where half the truck was the home feed, half the truck was the away feed, and they would share audio person, share camera feeds. And we just started this condensing of remote broadcasting to the point where they don't even send trucks out anymore. Everything's done down fiber, and they switch it in New York, or they switch it in Denver. They have hubs, and they switch the whole game, but they just send camera people out. So I guess what my point is that when I saw that on the wall, it's like, well, this is where we're going. It is an opportunity, to share a message, but I hear what you're saying in a lot of ways. So I encourage even my daughter. I'm like, look, it's great to see something online and be excited about it with social media. I said, that's the smoke. Now go find the fire. Where's the fire to that smoke? That fire is going to be when you call that person, when you go out, when you find that and you call it. Hey, are you okay? Hey, do you need something? Be a person, right? And use social media as a way for you to connect, and then as level one, and then go further with it, right?
I totally agree. And look, the things that you're saying right now is, I wish folks in radio, I wish folks who were newspaper journalists, I wish they were seeing the writing on the wall. And the writing on the wall 15, 20 years ago, it was there. You better be the person bringing in money. You better be responsible for the revenues. Not when you see a bean counter seeing that, you're costing us money, what are you bringing in? They don't see you bringing in the money because of your talent. They see the salesperson bring it in. So if you're in broadcasting, that's why since day one in 2008, who was better to market my show than me? And so it's in the neighborhood of $4+ million over the years of revenue I brought in, advertising revenue. But I have taken care of myself, and I've created another opportunity until the day I die now. The rest of my life, I'm taken care of. I have a plan. I am not at the mercy of somebody owning me. That's why I've taken over my brand. That's why I market myself, and it creates more opportunities. But when I see somebody in broadcasting who has been let go this time of year because somebody wants to get a better Christmas bonus, higher ups, I don't necessarily, I feel bad, but I don't feel bad for the fact that they knew this was happening and they did nothing about it. They knew that they needed to be responsible for going out to the car dealer or this person and having that personal, go back to relationships, having that personal relationship. So if something happened, you've got the power. It's not the salesperson. It's not the general manager. It's you, because if you go, they go. And that makes everybody go. And so, unfortunately, not enough people have learned that. I don't care if you're in something other than sports broadcasting or news talk. You could do this as just your normal top 40 afternoon DJ. I don't know why they allowed the power to get out of their hands, because they did have the power.
You got to control.
Rodney Orr knows all about that power.
Yeah, right. I was going to say, there's a guy who knows all about this and diversifying a brand. Rodney Orr, welcome to Merry Christmas, Rodney Orr.
Merry Christmas. Y'all are way over my head.
Rodney, see, Rodney has been doing this, and he's so subtle about it, but he's been doing this for longer than I've been doing sports talk radio. I mean, he's been doing this for 20+ years, and I don't know if it was by accident in the beginning or what, but he's been spot on, being way ahead of the curve. And that's the way, unfortunately, that's what you have to do as the technology continues where we're going. You have to find your niche and keep on taking advantage of it.
Rodney, I first heard about you from John Turner in the late 90s. And you were this guy from Texas that had moved back to Alabama to start Tighter Insider. So you were
Mhm.
like, again, way ahead of the curve. How you
Well,
doing this morning?
let me just tell you real quickly. And I saw where Brennan popped up my book there, and a lot of it's in the book. And it's again, it's not just about Tighter Insider. It's about life and things that happen beyond what we're talking about here. But uh, really, what happened was this dream I had. I had a vision of covering Alabama. And I knew there was a niche there that wasn't being filled. And that niche was these Alabama fans were so obsessed with recruiting. And they really didn't have a source that was filling that void. And it was something that I knew it because I was an Alabama fan that shared that same kind of obsession. And so I had this idea. It was my brother who told me about the internet in about 1994. I had no idea what the internet was. And it was really my only option. So it wasn't that I came up with this great idea. He just told me, hey, this is the future. This is the direction things are going. Newspapers are going to go out of business. TV stations will eventually be on the internet, and I'm thinking he's crazy, right? He has his doctorate's degree from Tulane, and I thought he had spent too much time in college, you know. But
Wow.
but yeah, he's telling me all this stuff. So I said, okay, look, I've only got one option to to kind of fulfill this vision and dream of mine, and this is it. We'll see what happens with this internet. And guess what? Within 18 months, we started on October 27, 1996. Within 18 months, I'm making more on TighterInsider.com from a little room in Corpus Christi, Texas, providing information to Alabama fans all over the world. I'm making more doing that than I am on my real job. I'd been with 10 years, sales and public relations with BFI, which is a waste management company.
Yeah.
Used to be. It's changed names now. But I say all that to say, I'm not really taking credit for it. It just kind of fell into place. You seize the opportunity. If you really are desperate to do it, you jump on it, like you said, and that's kind of what we did.
Well, you were so far ahead of the curve to not give up too, because most of the time when you're on the way to the top, most of the conversations you have with people are you're not going to make it. It'll never work. You just can't.
Oh
Listen
no!
to
Look, I heard that all the time.
Yeah.
I was told when I was in Corpus Christi that the people inside the football complex do not like you. You're not welcome in Tuscaloosa. You're never going to get credentialed. You're never going to have access. All of these different things. And I said, well, they don't even know me.
Yeah.
How,
There you go.
you know what I'm saying?
Yes.
So I think when I was younger, I had this kind of boldness about me that said, this is kind of stupid. Well, so I just went over and confronted people, right? I mean, in a very professional way, I would say, and doors opened. Because they realize, hey, this guy's not here trying to destroy the program.
Well, Rodney, I was in 2008, and when I started streaming, a good year to start streaming with Florida Gators. When we were doing all of our stuff, we would see like people copycat us. Like Gainesville Sun would start streaming a show.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, like we would drive down University Avenue like before the game, and we would see 2 and 3 people set up to doing these live streaming things.
Yeah.
It really like we saw that needle like with these before, because people understand this is before, Rodney. I'm not trying to tell your story, but this is before social media. So this is where you went to the forums and chat.
Yeah.
That was everything. Then
Well,
if you were you paid to be a part of a fan site.
I'm going to share something with you, and the guy would deny it. But I'm going to say it anyway. You guys are probably familiar with Shannon Terry.
Oh my God.
Shannon Terry created. Well, he took over Rivals. He didn't create it.
Yeah.
Jim Heckman from Seattle created it. All right. So, but he took it over. It prospered. Shannon actually started a network called Alliance Sports.
Mm-hmm.
You know where Shannon Terry, now he won't tell you this today, but you know where Shannon Terry started?
No.
As a poster on TighterInsider.com. He called me in the summer of '97. a year after we had started. No, he actually emailed me and asked me to call him. And I called him. He said, "Hey, I'm a member of yours. You've got a great idea. I've got a great idea. I want to start a network of all these websites." I thought it was a fantastic idea. I mean, obviously, he's had tremendous success. He started 247. He sold it. He's got on 3. You know, it's doing extremely well. Give Shannon all the credit. But he started as a Tighter Insider poster. So now again, he wouldn't admit that today, but
Now,
that's really
Rodney, wait, time out. I got to ask Rodney. You
yeah.
know, I'm as the, you know, I have an MBA. And I used to work in college athletics. Why did you, knowing what you know and knew back then with Tighter Insider, how come you didn't roll with that idea?
Well, I'm in business 27 years later. Okay, so the thing was, does your vision match my vision?
Yeah.
And he had the business perspective. I had the passion for Alabama football perspective.
That makes sense.
This
And
was
that comes out, Rodney, with anything that we do. If you don't have real passion, as here it is Christmas Eve, and Rob got me fired up earlier. I mean, if you don't have it, people can tell if you're fake or not.
Yeah, well, you know, and again, this is something we started. We felt like it was moving forward in a very positive direction. You know, and you have to ask yourself. Now, look, I've had other opportunities. Jim Heckman, when he went over to scout.com, offered me a major deal to join them. You know, we've had other opportunities, other people, and it's not anything, you know, personal against these people. It's just the direction that we wanted to take. And you know what? It could have been, we could have flopped. I mean, we're one of the only, and this isn't bragging, and we've just been fortunate to be where we are, that one of the only independent websites that there's still left standing, you know, that covers a program that's not part of a network, that still has we have a major forum of community of fans, Alabama fans. It's a little bit different. We don't have a lot of the younger kids. Most of ours are probably 45 and up. You know, it's different.
But there's
So
nothing wrong
anyway,
with that, because
no, there's nothing
they have
wrong.
the decades of growing. I mean, look at the problems with college football today, where we're losing interest with college students. We don't see it as much in the SEC, but we see it nationwide. And those are your future season ticket holders. But you don't experience that if you grew up in the South and you're in your 40s. And then you think about the 40s, the 50s, the 60s, and 70s, people are living longer. You've got decades of passion there that are following your work.
Look at the brand of Gatorbait magazine. We ingested Gatorbait magazine, and it's been around since 1980. And do you remember the recruiting hotline numbers?
Oh yeah, I had one.
Yeah, I had one. Yeah,
the 900 numbers.
Yeah.
Oh.
You know how much money that made? That generated thousands and thousands of dollars. Like and Gatorbait was all over that stuff, because that was where we got information. But the brand today was still, the brand was just sitting there. We ingested it, 6 years ago, assumed, you know, ownership of something that nobody really thought was the thing. And, you know, that to this day still strikes a chord, because they're like, oh man, I remember Gatorbait in my back pocket when I went to the game, right? You know, I got the
Gatorbait.
Yeah, that was the brand. And when University of Florida went away from that, you know, we had to decide if we were going to go away from that too. And that's where we started polling. Actually, we started having shows and talking to people about what the fans and getting out there. And it was an amazing sort of process with my dad to sort of, you know, listen to the one specific team's, you know, history of and what it means to them. And it meant a lot to a lot of people. And that's why we decided to keep it, because of the, you know, the brand itself. So I agree. I mean, Gatorbait, when I started GatorabateMedia.com, we're still one of the only independent, you know, websites and we're not about forums there, because we got Buddy Martin, Franz Beer, and these guys writing. People come to read, and we don't run ads in our articles. So it doesn't, like, I hate.
Oh, that drives me crazy. That drives me crazy.
So we offer an unmolested, like, reading experience when you can come in, and I don't have to worry about my finger hitting the damn ad when I'm going through it, because I can just read it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And these kind of things matter to the older audience who want to print that stuff out, who want to take it with them or whatever. And all of our audience, like you, Rodney, is 45 plus.
Rodney,
Yeah.
what's your unfinished business? What do you in 10 years? Is there something down the road that you see? Like for me, I want to write the rest of my life.
Yeah.
So I'm happy with doing just the one show a week now, and living up to. If I'm going to be next year in the Tennessee Sports Writers Hall of Fame, I feel like I need to bring that part of my life back. What do you want to do? Is there something that you still haven't done that you feel like it needs to complete your resume for yourself personally?
Yeah, I do. Actually, I've got 4 major speaking engagements coming up in January, 3 to drug recovery centers, 1 to a men's group, First Baptist Church in Pelham. That's really my passion now. It's kind of probably not what you expected me to say, but as you see in my book, I had a family situation. My wife, we talk about this business. She was the greatest inspiration I had, the greatest motivation, the greatest support that I had. She pushed me into my destiny where I am right now. She was the one when I had no faith. She had all the faith, and she told me it is going to happen. This business, in spite of living 1,000 miles from Tuscaloosa, that no real avenues to achieve what I wanted to achieve, it seemed. But she believed. But what I never would have known is that my wife would have become addicted to prescription drugs once we got to Tuscaloosa after a few years. Eventually, my stepson, who was a tremendous athlete, he probably was a future potential Major League Baseball player. He played 2 sports at Alabama. He got addicted to prescription drugs and different drugs very quickly after he got to school at Alabama. Ended up, he didn't lose his scholarship, but he was suspended. And eventually, I made the decision that he wasn't going back. He was in no condition. So, March 7th of 2007, my wife, after a 7-year drug addiction, prescription drug addiction, she passed away in an accident, car accident. And just that experience, the experience of my stepson, and all of these things, which I thought he would be the next one, but through the grace of God, as I stood there after my wife passed away, I'll never forget, and it's in my book, standing in my kitchen. When you go through a drug addiction and you have 4 kids, there are major, major issues. It's chaos, confusion. It's the craziest stuff you've ever imagined, right? And I'm standing in my kitchen a week after my wife's funeral, and I said, Lord, I can't do this, but you can. I mean, I was at the point of desperation that I'd never been. And, when I say that, I'm not telling you that the Lord changed everything immediately, but he gave me what I needed every step of the way. He resurrected my family. He took my stepson, who was facing 5 years in prison for drug trafficking. He took him, and he instead of going to prison, he went to a drug rehab for a year in Colfax, Iowa. That was in 2008. Now he has an international ministry, Ascended Life Ministries in Des Moines, Iowa. He has transformed. I'm not saying everything's perfect. Do not get me wrong.
Yeah,
We
right.
still have battles. I have daily battles,
Mhm.
but it is through all of these things that I've learned what is bigger than Bama. Okay, what is bigger than Bama? And so you asked me, what is my kind of aspirations? You know what? My passion, I want Alabama to win, but my passion is talking to people and telling people about, my life story, sharing my testimony, about mistakes that I made, being honest, being truthful about the mistakes I made as a man, as a person, as a father, as a husband, we make these mistakes and we don't even really realize what we're doing. Our priorities are all screwed up. Mine was nothing but Alabama football, and I lost contact with my wife and my family, once we got here in Tuscaloosa. So anyway, I share all that in the book, but that's really what I try to reach out to people. And my passion is speaking to these drug addicts or alcoholics in these drug recovery or abuse, substance abuse centers. I've done that. I do that. I've had a jail ministry where I go in and, talk to these inmates. This is something that I really have a passion for.
Yeah.
Well, Rodney, I mean, I heard a lot about you through our mutual friend, and that's when we connected back in, I guess it was April of 2020 during the pandemic. And that was a month after we had started going on the radio. And you know who I'm talking about. And he said, you got to get Rodney Orr on the show. And next thing you know, I'm on the phone with you. And I'm like, good Lord, this guy's bigger than you're bigger than you're that good. You're real. I just know a lot of people that know you. And the one thing that you just said is you turned the experience in your life into a teaching tool, because look at your stepson and look at you and what you're doing. And a lot of people have this attitude, something bad happens to them, they're done. No, that's just, fork in the road in life. And I mean, and you've been told, Brendan's been told, I've been told, Johnny, lots of our guests, you'll never make it doing it that way. And it's really cool to see how this stuff works out.
Well,
And
it's a family of people. Look, everyone I went to school with for what I do now, not one of them works in the industry. Not a one.
wow.
Because it's not for the faint of heart. Look, Rodney, it's funny how we're all connected, and you see it in media. I always talk about it, 6 degrees of separation, right? I'm not here testifying, but I left broadcast TV because the world of broadcast television and NBA and all that stuff and running around was too much for me in a lot of sense. I landed up in a rehab program in 2007 on Easter Sunday morning,
Wow.
and checked myself in and left that entire life behind me because I knew people, places, and things, right? It's what you learn. I ended up in rehab. I'm not trying to make a fun story here, but I did end up rehab, and my best friend in rehab ended up being Jack Kemp, former, football player. He didn't win the Super Bowl,
Politician, everything.
Politician and quarterback for the Buffalo Bills and all this kind of stuff. And all of a sudden, I'm face to face with the guy, and we're in some small group. I don't even know who the hell this guy is. He's got Argyle socks on, and he's talking to me, and he's new, and he's like, "Oh yeah, we're gonna, prayer, and we're gonna get over this." And I looked at him, I was like, "Man, you got to get real, yo. You're in rehab. You don't know what you're talking about." My friend goes, "You know who that is, don't you?" I was like, "I don't give a shit who that is." He said, "That's Jack Kemp." I was like, "Oh shit, maybe I should care who that is." And subsequently, him and I become bosom buddies, and then he died shortly after that. So but that brought me to live streaming. That brought me back to rethinking, right? What desperate times, it was the mother of all invention. I know it's a different quote, but
necessity.
For me,
it is.
It really does force you to rethink it. I came back to this because I couldn't go back there, right? But I loved what I did. And I wanted to, continue on. I think there's a lot of people in our industry who have suffered to stay in the industry in a lot of ways. And it's a tremendous sacrifice. So it really pisses me off when people are like, hey, the media sucks and this sucks. And I was like, man, there's a lot of really great, I had this conversation last night. It's like, there's more really great journalists who have broken their ass to bring you the news for free and make sure it was sourced and done and ethically curated and AP styled and all those things and brought to your doorstep for free for the truth. And you don't know how hard we work to get that for you. And we ain't making a bunch of money doing it. So,
we're rich.
You
Here's
do
the
it,
thing,
we
though.
do it for the passion of it. We love what we do.
But we're rich because of that. And Rodney,
Right.
back to your point, and for Rob and for this platform, but Rodney for the opportunity. See, that's what I love. The years that we've been doing this, it gives us those opportunities. We talked about earlier where people have lost the ability to communicate with each other. Rodney, just telling your story and sharing your story, I do that all the time. I had EJ Jr. on the show last night. We exchange text messages every day where he'll send a daily spiritual lesson, and I will comment back to him. And it just became an accident, really. But over the last 3 years, I saved every one of them. And it's really a book when you think about it, how a daily message can then also inspire you to be and have a better day. But Rodney, I think when you're going out and sharing your heart like that and being vulnerable, I think the more, especially as men, the more that we can show that, I think when people talk about how, real men don't cry or whatever. I love showing my emotions. And if I do, I feel like it inspires other people to feel like they can also relate. I mean, I work a lot as far as promoting the improvement of mental health and mental health therapies in our country. And I don't know if you know the stat, but basically 1 out of every 2 adults, so 18 and over, 1 out of every 2 adults will experience some form of mental illness in their lifetime. Let that sink in. Now, not all of those will be having to be committed. I'm not saying that, but you will have the point where you have depression or have suicidal thoughts. I personally, I've been battling long COVID for 4 years, and now I have no serotonin in my body, which means I'm a high risk for suicide, high risk for depression. But as you can see, my positive attitude, I have things I'm still working for. So at least I'm aware. But the first time you see that dark cloud and there's nobody around, you realize where 20 minutes earlier I was having a positive conversation with somebody, and then 20 minutes later, thank goodness there's probably not a gun or whatever around me. But at least if you're aware of it and you admit it to yourself, you're least likely to go down that path. And I've been able to do that. I use my mind to stay positive, despite, we talk about the daily walk where it's all not paved with golden roads. So, Rodney, I applaud you for speaking out. Like, I know it's not easy, but the more you do it, the easier it gets. And it shows other people who want to, but they're afraid to reach out. It shows that it is easy to do once they start getting in the habit of doing it. And then you inspire others. And I think that is, moving forward, I think what you're on to, Rodney, I think that's really the true solution of over the next 10 years, growing more positive as individuals, as communities, the more open we can get, because despite technology and how much easier it is to be able to communicate, I think it's becoming tougher to communicate because people want to keep things in now.
Yeah. Yeah, no, well, I appreciate you asking that question about unfinished business, but that's really kind of my passion, and
I love that.
Yeah, and I'm
like that would be a great name to title for your speech, Unfinished Business.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are we all? Seriously, aren't we all?
That's spiritual. Yeah.
We're all unfinished business.
Yeah.
And I love that. It's what you do with those next chapters.
It really is. The true mark of a person's character is not how you act when. We'll make a sports metaphor. It's not how you act when you're winning 54-0. It's how you act when the chips are down, and can you come back? Can you rally it and forget about it and show your mark of character in loss, right? Like, what do you act like when you lose, right?
I do have a sports question. I do have a sports question. Can I ask Rodney a sports question? All right, so I was thinking back, knowing that I'm watching Alabama, and I'm used to being around teams, and I can see teams that are undisciplined. And there's a reason why 3 teams you can always counting on to be the least penalized teams in the country in football, Army, Navy, and the Air Force, is because, and you're not making this up, just look at the year in and year out, least penalized teams. It's always 2 of those 3 in any given year. I bring it up because I really think now that we know that Alabama did not make the playoff, I think that if they had lost to South Carolina, it would have done them more good than the fact that they did win that game and be in the position where barely missing the playoff. And I bring it up because if you lose that game, there's no doubt you're not going to be in the playoff. And that means you look in the mirror and you start doing a self-evaluation and realizing you got to change something. So the question will be, what will change? Because there is a problem now with name, image, and likeness for these programs like Alabama, where, in so many ways, you think when you show up on campus, you were a part of all those national championships when you had nothing to do with any of them. And so I think this is a big problem where Kalen DeBoer is going to have to do a lot of self-evaluation in this offseason, because something has to change. And if you don't believe me, ask any of the players that have been involved in past national championships to a T. They will all tell you the same. This team lacked discipline this year.
Well, let me say this too. A little bit of defense for Kalen DeBoer. He inherited some of this you go back to 2022 and you look at some of the games. They had 17 penalties against Texas.
Right.
Against in 2022, the game at Tennessee, they fell behind like 28-10 or 28-7. They had
28-10.
17 penalties in those games. I mean, this is something that was started in the last couple of years of Saban's tenure.
Right.
And he kind of inherited that. DeBoer, of course, everyone remembers Coach Saban fondly. They don't remember the things that happened that weren't, championship games or championship moments or the discipline you're talking about that his teams generally played with. They don't really remember those things. They forget. And DeBoer kind of inherited him, and now he gets blamed for a lot of this stuff. Now, here's the thing. It's up to him to get it corrected. It's up to him to take control of this program. It's up to him to, let the players know, hey, this is the way we're going to do it. And you know what? I think he had some issues with that. I think he had issues with players this year, understanding who's exactly the coach. Okay.
Well, how about the Vanderbilt game? I mean,
Yeah.
and I'm not just even blaming Kalen DeBoer. I'm blaming also the leaders of the team talking smack at the coin toss against Vanderbilt.
Yeah.
And these are your leaders on the football team. And then
No, look, you're
in the
right.
end of the ball game, how is Malachi Moore? I don't care if you take back 15-yard penalties. You're not playing or snapping the ball until Malachi Moore gets his butt off of that football field.
Okay,
There's
look,
no excuses for that.
You're right. And let me go back to 2022 when Alabama beat Texas 20-19. Texas should have won the game, honestly. Bryce Young made a spectacular play to put Alabama in position to kick the winning field goal. All right. So Alabama players are walking off the field after the game, giving the horns down sign, right? Saban went ballistic. If you've ever seen that video of Saban going to midfield to shake Sark's hand, he stops and he starts yelling, "Stop that! Shh, stop that!" So these things are kind of, I don't know if you want to say it's kind of where we are now in the culture of where we are.
Yeah.
But I mean, again, it's a difficult time. I think, you look at Jalen Milroe after the Auburn game down there in 2023. You guys might have seen the video of him walking off the field. Well, Jalen, you didn't even have a good game. You did not have a good game. You were fortunate on that miracle throw, that you win the game, 4th and 31. And here he is swinging a towel saying, "Give me that blankety blank Heisman now. Give me that blankety blank Heisman now."
Yeah.
I mean, this is things, and again, these things were on social media, so I'm not saying anything that's not already out there.
Yeah.
So, but this is the kind of mentality that I think that Kalen DeBoer has somehow got to get in the Alabama program. He's got to get that under control.
We got a top player, Rob, today. Here we are, Christmas Eve. Should be thinking about why we're celebrating today and tomorrow, the true meaning of Christmas. And we've got this top recruit, major breaking, because it's going to happen. Don't forget, business decision going to be happening right after 2:30 this afternoon. It's down to 4 teams: Alabama, Auburn, blah, blah. I don't want that player on my team. I honestly, go away.
Okay.
If you're buying players who don't care about the school or just going there for the money, you don't want those individuals on your roster.
Let me say this. We're about to wrap it up. And incredible conversation today. You can almost directly correlate NIL July 1st of 2021, the portal October 15th of 2018, but juxtaposed the number of penalties, the lack of discipline, just the way a lot of these players act like they were born on third base. They think they hit the triple. That's where all this stuff started. Nick Saban cannot stand a lack of discipline. I'm sure Kalen DeBoer doesn't like it. None of us do. I've said this for years about professional sports. Too many of these guys are known not for diving into the crowd to save a ball or playing hurt or making a game-saving tackle or coming up in the clutch. They're known by the size of their contracts and how big of jackasses they are off the field and in their personal lives, getting arrested for driving on a suspended license or riding around on 4 bald tires. I mean, just stupid stuff. You got to have discipline in life. And Bobby Bowden used to say, discipline isn't everything, but it's big, because if it was everything, Army and Navy would be playing for the national championship every year. But it does matter. But the great stories, we got to go. I know Brendan's got to get to Walmart. Everybody's got a lot of Christmas
Good luck
shopping.
with that, Brendan.
Yeah, good luck. Audrey and I got to tell you, what's the meaning of Christmas? Father
Walmart?
John MacArthur.
You're going to say it's Walmart?
I was going to say Father John MacArthur put it best for me at Mass.
I bought that shit already. It's at customer service waiting for me. They're just texting me saying, come pick it up. I'm not going into Walmart. Screw that.
Yeah.
I mean, Montgomery Ward gave
hell
us
no.
Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, so why not Walmart bringing
I
Christmas?
went Clark Griswold the other day. I'm 50 now, and I just had enough with the neighbors and their lights and everyone looking cool. I went and bought out Walgreens. And I went full Christmas vacation on my house. It's like everywhere. I think,
you'll be a GoFundMe in January with your electric.
I know, to pay the power bill. Yeah.
Oh yeah, it'll be. But you'll just look about it. I mean, it's Christmas, and Johnny, you're talking about Christmas Eve. Some guy's gonna make his announcement.
My mother died Christmas morning in '97, so obviously Christmas is, and it's not a sad day for me actually. Obviously it was sad that particular day, but I turned it into a positive. So it's really what you make of it. And so I don't want to hear about Christmas is too much this or that. It's what you make of it.
Hey,
absolutely.
Most often we see the face of Christ, at least among us. There's somebody out there that's going to be inspired by what you do. Your words matter. Go out and find somebody. If you got some spare cash on you today, find somebody that really needs your help and do it. We are the best people in the world on this show, our viewers and everybody. Merry Christmas. We'll be back.
Cash to me.
Yeah,
right here.
That's right.
I take Venmo, Cash App. You can send a check, right, Rodney? Right, Rodney? You can send. You still can send me a check, brother. Put it right in the mail.
Subscription to TiderInsider.com. Great.
Needless to say, Rodney, are you and Gary doing Tider Insider TV tonight? Or are you taking off?
We did it last night.
Okay.
Yeah, Rob. We're the only idiots working today, Rob.
I know.
Yeah.
We'll see. Merry Christmas, everybody.
Rob does this as
Merry
therapy.
Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
Thanks, everybody. We'll see y'all later this week.
We'll see you.
Okay. Appreciate it.
In a perfect world, you'd set a health goal and results would happen overnight. In this world, the real world, it takes time, dedication, and the right support to achieve your best self. The Vitamin Shop's health enthusiasts are here to make sure you're not wasting a single moment on the wrong supplements. From the highest quality sports nutrition and superfoods to the most sought after trends, you'll find a huge variety of science-backed solutions for every goal and the people to help guide you along the path to greatness.
Unbelievably, every 2 minutes in our communities, a child is either bought or sold for sex. I am Ari Dickey, board member for the Nashville Anti-Human Trafficking Coalition. Join me and millions of others in our fight against human trafficking and for its victims by helping to educate the most vulnerable among us, our middle and high school students. Go to nhtcoalition.org, become a partner, and help keep our families safe, because none of God's children are for sale.